This is the We Built This Business podcast. Today, we're running our how-to mini-series where we speak with a business owner who is an expert in a particular area so that we can learn and do a deep dive and find out more information to help our own businesses. I'm pleased to have John Lamerton on the We Built This Business podcast today. John is the Managing Director of Big Idea Ventures and has written 4 best-selling books on Amazon. Today, as part of our how-to mini-series, we'll be talking about how to get customers by writing a book. John, welcome to the podcast.
It's great to be here.
Really looking forward to today, John. So books are something that's really interesting me at the moment. I think it's Daniel Priestley that's kind of hit the headlines a lot recently by saying along the lines of that it's not the book that you read, it's the book that you write that changes your life. So I'm interested to hear how your transition from business owner to essentially best-selling business author has kind of adapted your career and changed it. So first of all, can we talk about Big Idea Ventures? What's that all about, John?
Yeah, so I have been running small businesses for almost 25 years now. And for the first probably 16 years of that career, it was, I thought I was Richard Branson. I was just going around just creating random business. I would build, buy, acquire these small businesses. Everything from a directory telling students where they could get free sachets of shampoo, a website where football fans can get the best pies, selling serviced office accommodation in London, villa rentals in the Algarve. We helped florists to market their business. We gave away free horse racing tips. We even sold sex toys. And there was nothing, there was no niche, there was no sector that we wouldn't go into and try and explore. And I ended up with these probably about 60 businesses. Yeah, I felt like I was Richard Branson. You know, you're not a successful entrepreneur unless you've got a record company and an airline and a bank and a music festival and a radio station. All very, very disparate, I would say. And I got to the point where I needed to simplify my business because I was doing everything for all of those businesses. I would drop in and I'd do some PR. Then I'd be doing customer service. Next thing we know, I'm doing the SEO and I'm redesigning the website. Then I'm back in the stock room, making sure we've got everything we need for the next quarter. And I got to the point where I really needed to simplify my business. And I said to my business partner, Jason, right, we're going to simplify this. We're going to take it down. We're going to shut down some of these businesses. We're going to sell some. We narrowed it down to about 2 or 3 businesses, predominantly in the sports betting arena. And around about 2016, we got to the point whereby we actually exited the day-to-day running of those businesses. So we had this fantastic plan that we were going to automate, we were going to systemize, we were going to put a team in place, and then we wouldn't be needed. Fantastic. Good news is we got there in 2016. The bad news is we got there in 2016 and went, well, what the hell do we do now? I was in my late 30s. Jason was in his early 40s. So we are too young to just hit the golf course and, waste away the rest of our lives. We really, really enjoy getting our teeth into small businesses. So we decided, right, we want to help small business owners to avoid the mistakes we made in a lot of these businesses. We have made so many mistakes. We've got so much wrong over the years. We worked far harder than we needed to, amassing far much more than we needed to keep ourselves sane. So it started off and I said to Jace, right, let's get 6 people around my kitchen table and let's just, wet behind the ears, brand new entrepreneurs. Let's help them. Let's just meet up with them once a month, give them some homework, give them some books to read. They can ask anything they like. We will answer it completely free of charge. This was a kitchen table mastermind for free. And yeah, we did that for about 6 months. And we reached a crucial point after about 6 months because 6 people became 8 people, 8 people became 12 people, and then eventually 12 people became 13. And 13 was a magic number because I've only got 12 seats in my kitchen. And so every month it became standing room only. And we decided, okay, this needs to be an actual thing. We actually need to put something together. This can no longer just be, hey, come to my kitchen table, we'll have a chat. This needs to be a structure. So we decided to put together the 1% Club, which is the idea of leaving your business 1% better every single week. And we moved it to a hotel. We created Zoom calls back before COVID, when we were the early pioneers of Zoom. We got to the point whereby we'd helped certainly these 12 people very, very well in their first 6 to 12 months of business to just avoid those mistakes, quit the day job, get to that critical mass of, hey, I can pay the bills, I don't need to worry about money. And they were in a very, very good place. And I said to Jade, it's really good that we've helped these 12 people, but I want to help 12,000 people. How do we help more people? We've run out of chairs around the kitchen table now. What do we do? And one of my coaches at the time was nagging me. He said, John, you've got a book in you. He said, you should write a book. And I pushed back on that for about 2 years. Because A, I'd never written a book before. I don't know how to write a book. And B, I felt if you're going to write a book, you've either got to sell 1 million copies of that book to earn any money, or you just become that guy who's got 5,000 copies of his book in the garage, who's just trying to give it away to everyone he knows. And I couldn't get that to work for me. I couldn't see how or why it would be worthwhile my time investing in a book.
So what changed it? What changed your mind?
I think it was legacy, a little bit of ego. I accepted, right, okay, let's go back. I'm a big fan of Tim Ferriss. Okay, one of Tim's questions, you hear it so often, what would this look like if it were easy? So, and one of my favorite sayings is, we decided to do this not because we thought it was, not because it is easy, but because we thought it would be easy. And that's certainly the case for me writing a book. I said, right, how do I make this easy? Okay, what we'll do, Jason and I we'll launch a podcast, because we could just chat to each other. So 2-person podcast, no guest interviews or anything like that, just me and Jason chewing the fat. Episode 1, we talk about goals. Episode 2, we talk about desire. Episode 3, we talk about knowledge. Episode 4, we talk about environment. Episode 5, we talk about taking action. This is the framework that turned out to be my first book. Brilliant. Each episode, we talk about this topic. I vomit all the information I've got. Jason bounces back at me. Brilliant. We get the transcript from that, and bish bash bosh, there is the first draft of my first chapter. I've got 5 chapters of the book done really easily with a 30-40 minute chat with Jason. What could be better?
So this became, just dialing back about, this became what was called, I've written here, Big Ideas for Small Business. Is that the? Is
yeah,
it? So this was the birth of that book, was through an actual podcast.
It was, yeah. So our first 5 episodes were the first. Well, they were going to be the first 5 chapters of the book. I don't know if you've ever picked up an actual transcript of a podcast from someone who's never podcasted before. It's actually from 2 people who have never podcasted before, who talk over each other and just talk at the same time. It's just horrible. I ended up throwing it out. I was like, this doesn't work. It's actually easier to start with a blinking canvas, or blinking cursor, blank canvas, than it is to start with this transcription. So by that point, though, I'd already committed, because I went out to my audience and I stuck my flag in the ground and I said, guess what, guys? I'm writing a book. And I said to everyone, this would have been Christmas 2016. I said, 13th of July 2017, my new book, or my first book, Big Ideas, Small Businesses, is coming out. I hadn't written a word of it at that moment, but I thought it would be easy.
How did you announce it? You said audience. Was that on social media?
Yeah, that would have been my social media. Probably would have been Facebook at the time. So I had quite a big network. Again, I'd done a lot of business collaborations. I'd been quite busy in the affiliate world. I'd joined some entrepreneurial groups as well. I'd worked with lots of coaches and mentors. So there's lots of people I knew in business And again, I kept being told, you should write a book, John, because I used to blog as well. And I think I did a blog on my 10th anniversary of starting the business. And people didn't appreciate until they read that blog just what a roller coaster journey I'd been on, just how high the highs were, but also how low the lows were, how close I came to just losing everything. Probably, a year, 18 months after I was on the crest of a wave.
And so you've helped 12 people. Now you want to help 12,000. Why a book?
A book was something that I could put out at scale. So originally the plan was, we'll do the podcast. The podcast will help people. Again, we're talking about the end of 2016. So 8 years ago now. And I know we mentioned before we were recording that you went to university in Plymouth. A little bit before that, but we went networking in Plymouth, Jason and I, and we had business cards made up saying that we were podcasters and I think, do we call ourselves business coaches, business consultants, something along those lines. And so we'd hand out these business cards and we'd start talking to people. Oh, yeah, we're podcasters. Okay, what's a podcast? Can I get that on my phone? And it sounds ridiculous to hear that today, but 8 years ago, that was certainly in Plymouth. Is that a bit like radio then? And we suddenly realised that whilst we were huge fans of podcasts, our general audience were not. It's different now, but certainly at the time, we realised that this podcast, we had to convince people to listen to podcasts before convincing them to listen to our podcast. We did manage that with some people, but our audience already read books. I didn't need to convince them, hey, reading books is a good idea. Here's how to read a book. I just needed to say, hey, I'm launching a book.
Yeah. And that's where the market was. Yeah, that makes complete sense. And also it is thinking back, isn't it? Because I spoke to my parents quite recently about the fact that, we've been running a podcast for 2 years now. And they asked that same question. Where do I listen to it? What is it?
Yeah, I do. That reminds me of a story back in the day. A lot of what I do is email marketing. And there was a family event and I spoke to my dad and I said, I'll be about an hour. I've got to send out my email newsletter. And he went, okay. He said, well, how many people do you send that to? It's about, I don't remember what it was now, 15,000 people. I said, it's about 15,000 people get this every Thursday. And he just replied so seriously, went, that must cost you a fortune in stamps.
And it would cost you a fortune, wouldn't it now?
It would.
Amazing. So you've got the podcast, you've got the first draft, and you said, 2 podcasters never doing it before. The transcript is, let's just say, I imagine it wasn't as you hoped or imagined it sound. What do you do next? So
the next thing I did was really plotting out what that book is going to look like. What is the structure of that book? I decided it was going to be these 5 magic ingredients that I mentioned earlier: goals, desire, knowledge, environment, action. And I distilled every success I'd ever had, every success I'd ever seen in someone else, and every failure I've ever had, and every failure I've seen in everyone else, as coming down to either hitting the sweet spot of those 5 ingredients or missing a crucial ingredient there. People are very good at choosing what the goal is, but desire, do you really, really want that goal? Are you willing to pay the price of that? Are you willing to stop at nothing to achieve that goal? That's the desire. Knowledge, well, you need to know what to do. You need to know what the blueprint is. My first question now, whenever anyone says to me they want to do something new, launch a brand new business, is, okay, who's done it before? Who has done this, that has written about it, that has spoken on a podcast, that has created a YouTube video or something that has done this before? Someone said to me the other day, I want to be the mayor of Plymouth. I said, oh, okay, well, that's an interesting goal. Who's done that before? And she went, I don't know. I said, okay, take the mayor of Plymouth out of it. Who, and this was, I think she's a Polish immigrant. So she was like, oh, I can't do this as a Polish immigrant. I said, okay, who has, as an immigrant, reached a position of power in politics anywhere in the world? Find out who that is. That person's written a book. I guarantee it. That person has been interviewed, because They reached a position they wouldn't naturally have expected to. Environment. I talk a lot about routines, crafting the environment, making sure you're able to focus, able to do your best work, able to bring your A game to the table as soon as possible, every time. And then finally, action. How many people do we all see that have got the best laid plans in the world? They've plotted out exactly what they need to do. They've read all the books and they've perfected their working area, but they don't actually do anything, and they don't turn up every day and just keep putting one foot in front of the other. So yeah, having ascertained these 5 ingredients, I kind of thought, right, there's 5 sections of the book. Then we need to drill down. Okay, section 1, goals. What do we need to do to set effective goals? Do we need to set SMART goals? How do we get ourselves held accountable to these goals? What is a reasonable time frame for goal setting? Should we be looking at setting annual goals, 5-year goals, 10-year goals? I like 90-day goals. That was the framework I chose. So once you've got your big building blocks in place, you're then looking at, okay, how do I what are the stepping stones to that building block? It's like putting Lego together, and you've got your red pieces, your green pieces, but you need to stack everything up so that it makes sense. And what I didn't do for this first book, which I now advise anybody to do, is to start by writing the chapter page first. So first and foremost, so I've done this. I'm about to write my 5th book. And the place I start there is, okay, I've got my topic. My topic for this next book is customer retention. I now imagine that I am doing a 60-minute keynote on this topic. So I need to put together some slides. And those slides need to explain who I am, what we're going to talk about, why that matters. We need to introduce that topic. What is the first step we need to do? I need to convince you this is something worthwhile investing a day of your time, 2 days of your time reading this book. Step 1, step 2, step 3. On each of those steps, we need to have the sub-steps. How do you actually achieve step 1? Okay, now, and we go on a journey. And when you put that slideshow together and you actually present that keynote, you don't need to actually do a keynote in front of people. I did do that last weekend, but you can record it on Zoom. Go through the narrative. You will notice what doesn't make sense. You'll notice that I've explained a concept here, yet my audience doesn't know what that concept is. So I need to explain that better. I've got this analogy here, but actually, there's something you need to understand before that. And it's getting everything in the right order. Once you're happy with your slides, guess what? That's your chapter structure. That is the skeleton of that book. It's following everything through from, this is why it's important. This is what we're going to be talking about. This is how to take that first step. This is the entire logical process. And then conclusion, answering objections at the end. Once you've got that, so right now I have a skeleton document for my next book. It's about 5 pages long, and that contains my main chapters, my sections, my subsections within each chapter. So within each chapter, I've got, for example, why lifetime value is important. Okay, what is lifetime value? How do we calculate lifetime value? What are some good examples of lifetime value? And you have to take people on a journey through each subchapter as well.
I love the way that, because you're effectively speaking to your customer through the presentation, which is what a book is. And I've never thought about it like that. You're actually already speaking to someone, just their reading, rather than you projecting your voice to them to be sat and looking at slides. It's a very interesting way of thinking about it. And so this process you implemented into your first book.
Yeah, so I think it's more as a result of that first book. I stood on stage at the book launch for Big Ideas for Small Businesses, and we'd invited the press along, and one of the journalists said to me, "So, John, any plans for a follow-up? What's the second book in the John Lamerton series going to look like?" And I stood on stage and I said, "I am never writing another book ever again." Obviously, I have now written 4, but it's written my 5th. But I made that such hard work because I didn't follow that structure. I didn't plan out my chapters first. I didn't ensure everything flowed. I sat there with a Word document and I wrote. And I went, okay, goes, desire, environment, knowledge, action. Great, I'll just write it as I go. And then you suddenly realize that what you've written as chapter 7 actually works better as chapter 13. Okay, so I'll move that there. Oh, that means I need to move chapter 12 earlier. So that's now chapter 9. Oh, but then if I put 9 there, chapter 10, that doesn't work there. That needs rewriting. Oh, if I split that chapter and put this on chapter 3, and this is chapter 14, do you remember the Back to the Future 2, where Doc Brown is explaining the alternate timeline using a big chalkboard? That was what was going on. Or Minority, with them shifting all the things around. That was exactly and it was a mess, and it was really, really hard. And now I'm very reticent to write anything that I don't know what's coming, because my audience, I need to know what my audience does and doesn't already know. I can't refer to things I haven't explained to them. I sometimes need to tease what's coming, and in order to do that, I need to know what's coming.
So when the book is in your, you've got it finished and what happens next? Because I've never written a book before. I wouldn't even know where to start. Would you go to a publishing house? Do you just release it on Amazon? How does it work?
So you can do either. So all of my books are self-published on Amazon for Kindle, for paperback, and for hardcover. I've got a publisher who does the audiobook side of things, but self-publishing is really easy. And for most people, it is probably the best route to market, unless you really, really fancy yourself as, the next Atomic Habits, the next 4-hour work week. You're going to have more creative control over the process. And if you're going to use your book as the best business card that you've ever had, if it is a way of introducing clients to your business, self-publishing is probably the best route to go, because you control everything.
Did you get anyone to check the book over, or did you literally write it yourself and just released it?
Yep. So I now have a team around me so I've got an editor, I've got a formatter, I've got some guys who do the design work for the covers. So I've now got this little team around me that I can now do my bit. And I know a lot more about the process now, so I can self-edit a lot better than I could for my first book, put it over to a proper editor, as I call them. They then bring it back to me. I've then got copy editors. I've got, you can have proofreaders. What am I thinking of? Formatters. So it needs putting in certain formats for Kindle, for paperback. You may decide what size paperbacks you want. That's easily done. I think the last guy I found was on People Per Hour or Fiverr or something like that. Lovely guy called Amit, based in Pakistan. He uses software that does a lot of the legwork for you. You have some to and fro. He will send over a copy of it. I go, yep, that looks good. Oh, actually, you got a line break here that I don't like. It's really quite simple. It still amazes me to this day, and I love the fact that I could do this with big ideas for small businesses. Was I finished that book on, I don't know, let's say a Thursday, and I uploaded the PDF to Amazon, and from that day on, anyone anywhere in the world who wants a copy of that book presses the order button, and the next day a highly polished printed book arrives at their door. And that still print on demand to this day amazes me. But it is definitely simple to do.
It is phenomenal, isn't it, when you think about it like that? Time-wise, so if we go back to when you set yourself a goal, so it was 2016, you announced to your community that you were going to release a book. What were the actual timescales? Did you meet your goal?
I did. I nearly killed myself in the process, which is why I stood on stage and said, I'm never doing this again. I massively underestimated it. And there is a saying that when you think you're 80% there, 90% there with your book, you're probably about 50% there. So I got to the stage, and I think I'd set myself a milestone of, by the end of March, beginning of April, that I would have finished the manuscript. Check. I achieved that. Brilliant. So I went to one of my business networking groups and I proudly announced, good news, guys. I've finished the manuscript. All I've got left to do now is proofread, get the cover done, stick it on Amazon. And then a lovely lady called Colette reached out to me, and Colette ended up being my book coach for I think the first 3 books that I did. And we had a little chat, Colette and I, where she just said, have you got your ISBN sorted? What's an ISBN? Okay. Have you got your blurb sorted? Oh, do I need a blurb? Do I? Yes, you do. What about formatting? What about formatting? And there was just a long list of everything that, have you done this? No. Have you done that? No. Have you done this? What's that? And it was just a very, very naive approach to it. She eventually said, don't worry, John, we can do this. Good news is, this is what I do. I take people who have finished a manuscript thinking they've got a book written, and I turn it into a book. Best news is, it only takes 12 weeks. And I said, that's brilliant, Colette. I've hired a yacht club for 5 weeks' time, and I've invited all the press along and all my friends, and I've said publicly that this is when it's coming out. No, I'm not willing to move the deadline. A little bit of silence, and then she went, if you do everything that I tell you, exactly as I tell you, and don't question anything that I ever do, we might just be able to do that. And we ended up with a copy of Big Ideas at that launch party, which did not have Colette's name anywhere on it because she refused to be associated with it because it wasn't complete, it wasn't finished, but it was, for me, good enough for me to stand on stage and hand out to people and say, look, this is a rough early first edition. We got the final version out on Amazon and on Kindle and everything about a month later. But yeah, it was a rush job. But in terms of timescale, now that I know what I'm doing, I'm going to start writing in September, and that book will come out probably next summer. So about 9 months is my timeline. But the main thing I would say with any book, and my wife's writing a book this year, so I'm helping her, is don't rush it. Don't do what I did. I set myself a 6-month hard deadline and said, this, having never done it before as well, and said, this is when it's coming out. From every book then on, I think Routine Machine, my second book, was about 7 months. That was better, but I still had a firm deadline. But every book from then on has been, it's coming out when it's ready and not before. When it's finished, there's a reason that you release books, you let them go, because every one of the books I've written so far, I would love to go back and just update and just improve a little bit, find those 1% improvements. But you do release a book. So if you're only going to write one book, and I would advise most listeners, if you're going to use it to get clients, write the best book you can about you, your history, your business. Make it as good as you can. Don't rush it. Don't say to people, this is coming out in 6 months' time. Just let people know you're writing a book, by all means. But when it is perfect, and it will never be truly perfect, but when you are happy that someone can grip it out of your hands and take it out into the world, that is the time to release it.
I think my phrase that I like to say is good enough.
Yeah, I said that to Colette. She disagreed that good was not effing good enough, I think was. And the point she made, and she did ask me this question, she said, John, how many books do you plan on writing? And I said, this will be the only one I write. And she said, well, let's make it perfect then. She said, why would you rush this to get it done, let's say 2 weeks earlier, when this book is going to stand on shelves forever? That this is your legacy. This is what, you're passing this on to your kids. People will always have this book. If this book isn't quite good enough, that's what your 5-star reviews become 4-star reviews or 3-star reviews. People don't tell their friends about it. It doesn't stand the test of time. You've got to make it really, really good. Yeah, my phrase was very much good is good enough, but yeah, she vehemently disagreed with me on that.
I love that. Cost, I think, is a big problem for a lot of people looking to write a book. Like you said, people think, oh, you just write a transcript, or manuscript, or you just have, and then you release it. Well, knowing what you know now, we're 4 books in, all bestsellers, fantastic, amazing on average, not including the cost of your own time, what would you say is the cost of releasing a book?
I would, in terms of writing a book, I would probably budget, if you look at an average 50, 60,000 word book, 2,000, 3,000 pounds, something like that. That's just to get the professionals in. That is just to get a good editor in. That's a good formatter, get someone to design your front cover properly. The biggest cost is always going to be your time. Because, again, a 60,000 word book, you are talking hundreds of hours of your time. And that was something else I discovered writing the first book, was when I'm writing the book, I'm taking my eye off the business. And things slid. Things didn't happen that should have happened in that business, that would have happened if I didn't take my eye off the ball. But it's finding that time and carving that time out is so important.
Yeah. And I think we'll go on to time in a minute. I wanted to talk about the key subject, which is the customer's part, the actual outcome. So the book's released, you've got a book launch, massive high.
Yep.
Do the customers suddenly come rushing in? They're knocking on your door. What happens next?
Yeah, there's a little element of that. So I think if you've got an existing audience, if you've got prospects who already know you, then this accelerates the whole know, like, trust process. Suddenly you are elevated in their estimations. You become the published author. So there'll be an element of people who will immediately come in the door, but predominantly, no, it's a business card that people don't read straight away. And, I find within my own business, the 1% Club, it's probably about a year between someone buying the first book and becoming a paid client. Now, my ecosystem is a little bit longer because we only open the doors twice a year in March and September anyway. So often people will be ready to become a client before they're actually able to. But for me, playing that long game of, let's say we're recording this in July. Someone buys a book today. They may not read that book for another month, 2 months. They may put it down a few times. Often they will read it again. They'll pick it up and read it a second time or a third time. Sometimes they will pick up the paperback, then decide they want to get the Kindle so they can export the highlights. Sometimes they want to get an audiobook as well. Then they may come into my world, and that's where I have lots of ongoing sort of lead bait from the book. So actually, if you've enjoyed reading the books, maybe you'd enjoy getting a weekly email from me, which is like a mini chapter from one of my books. Once you've read 30 of those, then you might think, actually, this guy does know what he's talking about. And that's the key thing with putting your book out there. It is demonstrating your knowledge. It is demonstrating your expertise. It demonstrates that you are the expert in your field, that you absolutely understand your clients' pain points. You absolutely understand what they need and how you can help them. And ideally, we mentioned earlier in the conversation that a book is a conversation with a prospect, with a client. And by planning that from the very start, that actually you're addressing them and saying, well, you're probably thinking this by now. Or you might be wondering, but what about X, Y, and Z? And by encouraging that conversation with the reader, you then lead to that prospective client having that conversation and thinking, actually, this could be the solution. This could be the answer I've been looking for. And for some businesses, that can be read the book, finish the last page. Oh, look, it's got their contact details on. Let me get in touch. Can we arrange a call, please? My wife's book, that is going to be the aim. So she is helping parents of children with additional needs who are suffering in school. If your child is suffering and you just read a book that you think could help you, you're not going to wait 6 months to get in touch. You're going to say, right, I want to act on this now. You may have a business which is a bit less of an urgent need, but that book convinces you to take some action. whenever that does. And it is that, I always say it's the best business card I've ever had, because people buy me, people pay me rather to read the business card.
Yeah.
They then invest a day, 2 days of their time reading my business card. And then they either get in touch saying, here's my credit card, please take some money. Hello, nice to meet you, by the way. Or they say, this guy's an idiot, he doesn't know what he's talking about, and I never hear from them.
Could you give us a real world example of, so this is after your first book, when someone first came into your ecosystem that you had no association with whatsoever as a result of the book?
Yep. And the first thing I would have had, and I loved this, and I still chuckle every time I do this, because remember, my business started around my kitchen table. It was 6 people that I knew. The next 6 were people that I knew. The 13th person was someone I knew. And when I put the book out, that yacht club was full of people I knew. And everyone there I knew who was buying the book. And when we launched the 1% Club, off the back of that book, the first, 10 sales, 15 sales that came through. Oh, I know that name. Yep, I know that person. And then suddenly I just got a WooCommerce notification. Someone has sent you £97. And I'm like, who is that? And I just remember ringing Jason and saying, Jace, have you ever heard of, I can't remember who it was now. Have you ever heard of this name? And he went, no. And well, they've just paid us £97. And then we do a little onboarding. So, where did you hear about us? Oh, I read your book. How did you find the book? Oh, I was just scrolling Amazon one day and the cover leapt out at me like, oh, this is a proper client. This isn't someone that knows me. It says, oh, my mate John's written a book. This is someone who, without that book, would not have become a client. And now, we've had probably 400 1%ers now over the last 8 years. The majority of them are people who I have had no contact with. And the first conversation I have with them is when they've just sent me some money and they've just joined the club and I've gone, hey, welcome to the club. What do you do? And it's just such a world of difference from us going out networking and trying to convince people we knew to do business with us. Now, we don't need to do any convincing. The book does the convincing for us.
And that's everything this topic's about, isn't it? How to get customers by writing a book. Let's talk about compounding, because you said, only write one book. You'll be mad to write another one, eh? Why have you written another one, and what has the impact been of multiple books?
Cool. So I had this little nagging thing. So when I went on the book tour for the first book, the only book as it was going to be, I went on an American podcast and this host was really, really grilling me. Why'd you do this? How do you do that? Well, this business you had here, how did you build that business? So, and a lot of my answers were, oh, when this happens, I do this. I do this every week without fail. Every day I start the day like this. And the host said to me, John, routines are really important to you, aren't they? And I went, yeah, I kind of guessed they are. I went, no, he said, they're really important to you. You are like the king of routine. And I went, oh, I like that. And then this little voice started in my head. Routines are really, really important to you. And I started connecting the dots. Again, using those 5 magic ingredients, going back, oh, actually, yeah, I do craft the environment by putting routines in place. The knowledge is, what are the routines I need to achieve this goal? Actually, yeah, routines are really important. So I said to myself, I wonder if I could write a book on a single topic, because Big Ideas was designed to be everything I know about business from 16 years of running business. Here's my legacy. Here's my framework. There isn't a second book. Thank you. Good night. And then suddenly someone said to me, yeah, but what about routines? They're really important to you. That's like your entire success has been built on repeatable routines. I went, oh God, yeah. So I went on holiday. I took my journal with me and I set myself a little target. I said, if I'm going to sit there with a cup of coffee, and if I can write 2 pages of notes, 3 pages of notes, I will write a book on a single topic about habits and routines. And I ended up with about 8 pages. All right, this is becoming a book. I liken it a little bit, and I'm going to upset a lot of the female listeners now. I liken it to childbirth, in that it's really, really excruciating. If you speak to anyone who's just gone through it, they will say, never doing that again. 2 years later, oh, look, we're welcoming our second bundle of joy. And it is that bundle of joy, and it is absolutely worthwhile doing. But the effect now for me is, it's like the Marvel universe, or, the Pixar Easter eggs trail, where if you discover one of my books, suddenly there's a back catalogue there. So for many people, Big Ideas for Small Businesses is how they come into my world. But for others, it's Routine Machine. For others, it's Evergreen Assets. Many, many people, Evergreen Assets is my favourite of my books. But I now have an ecosystem whereby no matter how you discover one of my works, there's more available. And it then just becomes, what's the best business card for you? So I've got a book about habits and routines. I've got a business card that encourages you to work on your habits and routines. I've got a business card that encourages you to use content marketing to grow your business. I've got a business card that talks to people who are fed up with their business and want to exit their business. I'm now going to have a business card about the importance of keeping customers. If you'd rather keep the customers you've got and grow organically from there than constantly chase new customers to refill a leaky bucket, I've got a business card for you.
Yeah, I love it. No, I think it's a game changer for anyone that's thinking about writing a book and why they should write a book, because marketing is massively expensive and it's hot coals effectively. It's always there, and it's always going to bring you some leads in or customers in for as long as the lead magnets or the book is relevant, as long as it's evergreen, like you said.
Exactly. And you've got to market the book as well. You can't just write the book, put it on Amazon and hope for the best. I think if you do that, you get a little bump when it's new. And then suddenly 6 months later, you're selling 3 copies a month. You've got to still push it. You've still got to actually market the book. But then marketing a book is a lot easier than marketing your end product or service, because the commitment there is 12 quid, 5 quid on Kindle maybe. Sometimes, Amazon have discounted one of my books this month. It's 99p, and I'm suddenly selling a load of books. I've not really got involved with that, but because I have worked on making the book as good as possible, making sure I collect reviews for it, making sure that I am promoting it on my own social channels, Amazon have picked up on that and said, hey, this book sells. When it sells, they've got the data as well, but people who buy the book like the book. It's rated well. People who get the Kindle version do actually read the book. They do make highlights. They've got all the demographics. They've got all the information there within their algorithm to say, this book sells. Hey, let's stick it on sale. Suddenly, I'm getting loads of new people into my ecosystem thanks to Amazon.
That's incredible. I didn't even know that was how it worked. So do you have the control on that at all? As in, you could say, do not sell my book for less than $4.99, or is it something once you've self-published, Amazon control it from then on?
Yeah, you can set the pricing, and they encourage you to price accordingly. There's a sweet spot they want prices to be within. They don't want it too cheap because they just know that devalues the entire book experience on Amazon. They don't want it too expensive because they want people to be actually buying. Sometimes they will offer you a promotion. They'll say, do you want to take part in this promotion? And it's just a tick box. There's no guarantee it'll be picked for promotion, but sometimes they will just say, hey, we've chosen your book. And they will say, if you don't want to be part of this, if you don't want your book discounted, great. But most authors are more than happy to, because if they discount the price, you still get the full royalties as if it were full price.
Wow. Okay.
And you get obviously the extra sales.
So talking of sales, I don't know what a best-selling business book would sell in terms of volume. Are we talking, tens of thousands? Are we talking hundreds? What kind of volumes are you talking for a best-selling business book?
To get an Amazon bestseller is not that difficult. There's lots of ways of kind of gamifying it, and it's down to choosing a really good category, making sure that there's momentum. So Amazon, they don't tell you exactly what the algorithm for calculating bestseller is, but it's pretty crude. It's almost entirely how many books have you sold this hour, plus last hour, and a little bit less within the last 24 hours, and a little bit less within the previous week. But you can pretty much guarantee if you sell 100 books in an hour, pretty much guarantee you'll be bestseller, unless you've chosen a really, really tough category. Because I'm established now and I know what I'm doing, I don't chase that anywhere near as much as I used to. I just stick my books in small business or in marketing, and I just do a launch and I just say, hey, my book's available today. That leads to normally enough sales to get a bestseller status. A few weeks ago, I did a little promotion way back in COVID times. I did, I think, on Free Book Friday, and I just gave away free copies of the books for one day only. I just rehashed that a few weeks ago, said, oh, we'll do it again. And I ended up taking over the bestseller charts on Amazon for the entire business category. I was numbers 1 to 4 in the bestseller charts.
So you just gave the books away, but people had to obviously sign up and buy them. I imagine it was,
Yeah, exactly.
You didn't.
And the idea is then that it demonstrates to Amazon that, hey, these books are popular. So the week after I give my books away for free, I'm selling more books, because Amazon go, hey, this book's got momentum. Lots of people are reading it. Lots of people are enjoying it. Lots of people are rating it. Let's show it to more people. If someone searches Amazon for, I don't know, small business book, small business marketing book, content marketing book, my book might suddenly go from position 7 to position 2 or position 1, in which case, more likely to get the sale. When you get the sale, again, it's momentum. More likely, as long as you've written a good book, more likely to get a positive review, more likely to get more repeat purchases. Amazon want people to buy stuff. What they don't want people to do is to buy stuff and not use it, which they've got the data for Kindle to know whether they've used it. Paperback, not so much, but again, they know what a good review rate is. Like, what was I looking at yesterday? I was looking at an author yesterday. I was like, oh man, you've got a lot of reviews. Do you only put your book out like a month ago? And I looked at the dates of the reviews: 16th of June, 17th of June, 16th of June, 16th of June, 17th of June. Ah, okay. You've manipulated that. Yeah, that's not genuine reviews. Amazon,
friends and
if I
family.
can see it as a human, Amazon's supercomputer knows when you're faking reviews.
Yeah. So eight years on, is it 8 years? 7 years since your
7
first
years now,
book.
yeah.
How do you get the reports, like how many books in total has that first book sold?
Yeah, I haven't got that figure exactly. Amazon are a little bit cagey over this. They give you reports for like the last 90 days. So you've kind of got to stitch some reports together. And I don't think I've got it for years ago. I would estimate, proper finger in the air maths, I've probably sold 25, 30,000 books, maybe, of that first book. Which, again, if I'm reliant entirely on the royalties from that book, what does that equate to? It's about 100 grand. It's not bad for 6 months' work writing it and a bit of ongoing work promoting it, but I'm going to make far more on the back end by the clients I've got as a result of that book than I will do from the royalties. It's never about the royalties, and that's why I'm happy to discount the book. My royalty checks I give back to Amazon. So everything I get in royalties every month, I put on Amazon ads, and I just say, right, just spend that money selling more books, because I don't want the royalty checks. I don't mind the royalty checks. They're nice, but I don't really want that. I want clients. That's why I've written the book. I've written the books for clients. And I've now got that bug, and I love helping people, and I love writing these books. I'm never going to stand on stage and say, I'm not writing another book again. Or will I?
Or brilliant. Okay. Well, I think it's been a fantastic podcast on how to get customers through books. And I've learned an absolute ton of information about one, from writing a book to releasing a book to promoting a book. Have you got one bit of advice that we either may or may have not talked about anyone out there that's looking to write a book, maybe isn't taking the plunge yet?
I think do that exercise. Put that chapter structure together. Pretend you're doing that keynote talk. Have you got something of substance? Have you got enough content there? Can you, could you do a 60-minute non-stop talk on your area of expertise in a way that is entertaining and contains useful information? If not, probably not a good idea. Exploring writing a book. I'm a big proponent of books. There's a lot of people who can benefit from writing books, but it is absolutely not for everyone. Can you write? That's another thing. It is a skill. And one more thing we have to address. Please, please, please do not use AI to write you a book. Okay. AI is terrible. And it will get you blacklisted by Amazon. You have to declare to Amazon if you've used any form of AI to write a book. There's a lot of people out there who are they're uploading good books to ChatGPT and saying, can you write me a book on this, please? And make it's horrible. It's crappy content. And 10 years from now, this is the thing. So we're talking 7 years after writing Big Ideas for Small Businesses. It's on the bookshelf behind me. I'm proud to stand on stage and talk about the concepts within that book. If that was an AI written book, I would not be proud of it. I would not still be talking about it. People would not still be reading it 7 years later. This is your legacy. This is your chance to demonstrate your expertise. Please, please, please do not outsource it to AI.
That's stellar advice. I can imagine there's many people out there thinking, AI will do it for me.
I could do it in a week.
I wrote a book in a day.
Yep.
John, it's been great talking to you. Where can people that have enjoyed listening to you find more about you?
So the easiest way is to Google me. So it's John Lamerton, Lamerton. Google me. You'll find all my books. You'll find the 1% Club. You'll find my website, everything that. Obviously, you can find my books on Amazon. If you are particularly interested in using books to get clients, then I actually recommend you start with my book, Evergreen Assets, because I've written a section in there. I believe it's within the Nurture Assets section about how to write a book to get clients.
Brilliant. Well, we'll put those links as well in the show notes. And thanks again, John, for coming on the show.
Fantastic. Thank you once again for having me, Daniel.
So that was another episode of We Built This Business. If you like the show, please like and subscribe. We'll see you next week. Thank you.